The theme of the first episode questioned reality by asking, what is real? This theme showed us that the Crains need to come to a shared acceptance of what happened to Ivy if they want to come together as a family once again. It also showed us that it is not the fear of Crooked Neck that stresses Nell's sanity. I'm G, and this is the G-Spot. In addition to the night they fled, we saw 4 scenes from the time the Crains were at Hill House. 2 with Nell and Crooked Neck, and 2 that included a red door. We see that Crooked Neck ends up being too much for Nell to handle. The question we're left with is, can the rest of the family handle what's waiting behind the red door? Because if we're to listen to Shirley, it's death that's waiting for them. If the Crains do want to survive what's waiting for them, they will need to come together as a family. But this is much easier said than done for the Crains. It requires that they let go of beliefs that they used to survive the trauma and loss of that night. Beliefs that have allowed them to survive as individuals, but are also what's keeping their family apart by keeping each member of the family in a different reality. As individuals, we cannot always be sure what is real, as we see with Irene and Nell. When Steve gives his explanation to Irene, she takes him at his word. She does not dispute him. But at the same time, she remains baffled because she is certain that she saw her husband on the ceiling. Nell finds herself in the same type of situation. No matter what explanation is given to her, she remains certain that she is really seeing Crooked Neck. The reason we cannot always be sure as to what is real is because of the way we see our world. We do not see our world on the back of our eyes like a movie screen. Our eyes feed information to our brain, and then our brain tells us. It does not show us. Our brain tells us what we are looking at. So when Nell's brain tells her that she is seeing Crooked Neck, it feels like a very real experience to Nell because that is how she really sees the world. We can only be certain as to what our brain is telling us we are seeing. We cannot be certain that that thing is really there. It's fairly easy to write off a single occurrence like Irene's as a trick of the mind. But with a reoccurrence like Nell's, one can't help but to start to become confused about what is real and what is not. And this is the state of mind we find Nell in when we meet her. Nell is extremely confused. In Nell's voicemail to Shirley, she tells Shirley she can't explain what's going on. It's hard to understand. Things are twisted. It's living in this twisted reality that Nell cannot explain or understand that stresses out her sanity, not the fear of Crooked Neck. Stephen shows us 2 different ways we can confirm what is real in our world. The first and most reliable is the scientific method. The second and more common is relying on one another to keep each other in check. We see Steve do this with Irene, and we see Shirley do this with Max. But there is nobody there to offer Nell this type of support. The one person that Nell does talk to, Hugh, fuels her insanity by feeding her anxiety instead of reassuring her of reality. It's odd that there's no one there to support Nell because we see the Crane family offer support to Nell like this in the opening, and they do it without Liv's help. Hugh knows what to say to Nell to make her feel better. So if the family's able to support Nell when she's confused without Liv's help, what is keeping them from doing it now? Any group, be it a family or society, needs to have a shared accepted reality in order to meet challenges and thrive. The Crains lost their shared accepted reality when Hugh refused or was unable to provide an explanation for their trauma and loss. With no explanation for their trauma and loss, each member of the family was left to find their own explanation. And with these different explanations came different realities. Now, different realities should not be confused with different points of view. If you gather enough points of view, they will come together to form a whole picture. But no matter how many different realities you gather, they will never come together. Realities are whole to themselves and have no room for each other. This is why the Crains' different realities are keeping them apart. For example, Stephen's book of family secrets could not exist in Shirley's image-based reality. Nell and Luke's neediness cannot exist in Theo's self-sufficient reality. And Hugh's refusal to tell his story cannot exist in Stephen's reality, where he depends on other people's stories to tell his own. The Crains are all living in different realities, and they are unable to relate or understand one another because their different realities have different demands. There is hope for the Crains, and the hope is found in Nell. We see that Nell triggers a line of communication through the family in the opening, and then again in the present time. In the end of the episode, Stephen sees Nell's ghost. This is going to force Stephen to question his reality and what really happened to Liv that night. If he can manage to question his own reality, Stephen will make space to consider and recognize his siblings' different realities, giving him a chance to relate and understand them better. If you want to be sure to find out if the Crains find their shared accepted reality, go ahead and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, don't be afraid to like and share it. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.